Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We have another lecture. It's about descriptive study, and it's our fifth lecture in for a semester 2. Steps of descriptive studies are 6 points are important: defining the population, defining the disease, describing the disease by a time, place, and person, and measurement of disease, comparing with known indices, and formulation of etiological hypothesis. These are the mainly answers. 3 questions are time, person, and place, while 5 W's and 1 H: who, what, why, when, where, and so what. And these are the types of epidemiological studies. 2 types of epidemiological studies are: one is the non-experimental and experimental studies. Non-experimental studies are the observational studies and interventional studies. Observational studies further divided into 2 parts: population-based study and individual-based study. Population-based study further divided into 2 parts: descriptive studies, or we simply call it health survey, and analytical studies, we call it ecological studies. Individual-based studies are further divided into 2 parts: descriptive study and analytical study. Descriptive study means case reports or case series, while analytical studies are further divided into 3 parts. This is a cross-sectional study or prevalence study, case control study or case reference, or third study is the cohort study, population study. Cohort means population study or follow-up study. While experimental or interventional studies are further divided into 2 parts: randomized controlled trial or clinical trial study, and another one is the non-randomized CASI, experimental field trial or community trial study. Descriptive epidemiology. Descriptive epidemiology is the first phase of epidemiological investigation, observing the distributions of disease or health related events in human population to identifying the characteristics with which the disease is associated. Fourth, basically 3 questions are asked: who, when, and where. And fifth, who means the person affected, where means the place, and when is the time distribution. Descriptive epidemiology: the best epidemiology of mankind is man. This statement emphasizes the importance of making the best use of observation on individuals or population exposed to suspected factors of disease. Meticulous observations made by Africa by Burkitt led to the eventual incrimination of Epstein-Barr virus as the etiological factor of the type of cancer known as Burkitt's lymphoma. It was the epidemiological study in New Guinea, hereditary neurological disorders that led to the discovery of slow viruses infections as the causes of chronic degenerative neurological disorders in human beings. Descriptive studies are usually the first phase of an epidemiological investigation. These studies are concerned with observing the distributions of diseases or health-related characteristics in human population and identifying the characteristics with which the disease in question seems to be associated. Such studies basically ask the question: when is the disease occurring? It's a time distribution. Where is it occurring? It's a place distribution. Who is getting the disease? It's a person distribution. The various procedures involved in descriptive studies are defining the population. Defining the population, its number, age, gender, occupation, cultural and other characteristics. Defined population can be whole population, can be sample, we can get a sample, or we can specifically selected groups. Actually, defining population, in the descriptive studies, investigations of populations not on individuals, the first step is therefore to define the population base not only in terms of the total number but also in composition in terms of age, sex, occupation, cultural attributes, and similar information needed for the study. The defined population can be the whole population in a geographic area or more often a representative sample taken from it. The defined population can also be a specifically selected group such as age and sex groups, occupational groups, hospital patient, school, children, small communities, as well as wider grouping. In fact, wherever a group of people can be fairly accurately counted. The defined population needs to be large enough so that age, sex, and other specific traits are meaningful. The community chosen should be stable without migration into or out of the area. It should be clear who does and who doesn't belong to the population. For example, visitors and relations, perhaps the most essential ingredients in community participation, which must be forthcoming. Furthermore, the population should not be different from other communities in the region. Finally, a healthy facility should be closed enough to provide relatively easy access for patients requiring medical services. Second, we have defined population, large enough, stable, non-migration, clear on who belongs to the population, and community participation. Second, we have defining the disease under study, need for an operational definition. Why is it important? Ophthalmologist needs a definition that is precise and valid to obtain an accurate estimation about the disease, and this definition is a definition by which the disease or condition can be identified and measured in the defined population with a degree of accuracy. Once the population to be studied is defined or specified, one must then define the disease or condition being investigated. Here, the needs of the clinicians and ophthalmologists may diverge. The clinician may not need a precise definition of disease, migraines, for immediate patient care. If the diagnosis is wrong, he can reverse subsequently. But the ophthalmologist, whose main concern is to obtain accurate estimate of disease in a population, needs a definition that is both precise and valid to enable him or observe working in the field condition to identify those who have the disease from those who don't. The diagnostic methods for use in ophthalmological studies must be acceptable to the population to be studied and applicable to their use in the large population. In other words, or simple words, the ophthalmologist looks out for an operational definition by which the disease or condition can be identified and measured in the defined population with the degree or a severity of accuracy. For example, tonsillitis might be defined clinically as an inflammation of the tonsils caused by infection. Usually, this definition, like many other clinical definitions, the WHO definitions of the health, serves to convey particular information but cannot be used to measure disease in the community. Third, we have describing the disease, and this disease is particularly divided in a systematic collection and analysis of data. This is according to the time, place, and person. Time, year, divided into year, seasons, month or week, day or hour, duration. Place, it's a climatic zones, country, region, urban, rural variations, towns, cities, institutions. Persons, age, gender, marital status, occupation, social status, education, birth order, family size, height, weight, cholesterol, habits, etc. Describing the disease. The primary objectives of descriptive epidemiology is to describe the occurrence and distributions of disease or health-related events or characteristics within the population by time, place, and person, and identifying those characteristics associated with presence or absence of disease in individuals. This involves systematic collection and analysis of data. Epidemiologist in descriptive studies is only an initial separation or grouping of variables according to time, place, and persons, and not classification of causal factors. Occurrence by week, month, year, or by day, hour of onset. It raises questions whether the disease is seasonal in occurrence, where it shows periodic increase or decrease, or whether it follows a constant time trend. There is a fluctuation. Epidemiologists had identified three kinds of time trends or fluctuation in disease occurrence. Mainly operational definition of the disease, keeping in the mind the objective of studies describing the disease. It's a time distribution. It's a short-term fluctuation, periodic fluctuation, and long-term fluctuation. Short-term fluctuations, there are three types. A. Common source epidemics. It includes single exposure or point source. 2. Continuous or multiple source. B. Propagated epidemic. 1. Person to person, arthropod vector. Third, animal reservoirs. And third, slow or modern epidemics. Periodic fluctuations are seasonal trend and cyclic trend. And third is the long-term fluctuation, and there's only one, secular trend. So first we will discuss the short-term fluctuation. The best known short-term fluctuation in the occurrence of disease is an epidemic. According to the modern concept, an epidemic is defined as the occurrence in a community or region of cases of an illness or other health-related events clearly in excess of normal expectancy. The community or region and the time period in which the cases occurs are specified precisely. Epidemicity is thus relative to usual frequency of the disease in the same area among the specified population at the same region of the area. Types of epidemics are there. Major types of epidemics are distinguished. Single exposure, common source epidemics are single exposure or point based. B. Continuous multiple exposure, propagated, slow modern. A common source epidemics. A common source single exposure epidemics, these are also known as point source epidemics. The exposure to the disease agent is briefly and is essentially simultaneously the resultant cases all develop within one incubation period of the disease. For example, an epidemic of food poisoning. 2. The epidemic curve rises and falls rapidly with no secondary waves. The epidemic trends of the explosives. There is clustering of cases within a narrow interval of time, and more important, all the cases develop within the incubation period of time. B. Common source. Continuous or repeated exposure, sometimes are exposure from the same source, may be prolonged. Continuous, repeated, or intermittent, not necessarily at the same time or place. A variation to the above model is that epidemic may be initiated from a common source and then continue as a propagated epidemic. Waterborne cholera is a familiar example. The epidemic reaches a sharp peak but tails off gradually over a longer period of time. Propagated epidemics. A propagated epidemic is most often of infectious origin and results from person-to-person transmission of the infection agents. For example, epidemics of hepatitis A and polio. The epidemics usually shows a gradual rise and trails off over a much longer period of time. Transmission continues until the number of susceptible is depleted or susceptible individuals are no longer exposed to infected persons or intermediary vectors. The speed of spread depends upon herd immunity, opportunities for contact and secondary attack rate, propagated epidemics are more likely to occur where a large number of susceptibles are aggregated or where there is a regularly supply of new susceptible individuals. For example, birth, immigrants, lowering herd immunity. Periodic fluctuation, we have third and we have a second time distribution. It's a periodic fluctuation. It has two types, seasonal trend and cyclic trend. Seasonal trend. First we will discuss seasonal variation, seasonal trend or seasonal variation. This is the same name. Seasonal variation is a well-known characteristics of many communicable diseases. For example, malaria, upper respiratory infections. Measles is usually at its highest in early spring and upper respiratory. Infections frequently show a seasonal rise during winter months. Bacterial gastrointestinal infections are prominent in summer months because of warm weather and rapid multiplication of lice. The seasonal variations of disease occurrence may be related to environmental condition, for example, temperature, humidity, rainfall, overcrowding, life cycle of factors which directly or indirectly favor disease transmission. However, in many infectious diseases, polio, the basis for several variations is unknown. Non-infectious diseases and conditions may sometimes exhibit seasonal variation. For example, sunstroke, heavy fever, snake bite. Some epidemiologists would regard seasonal trend as a form of cyclic trend. Cyclic trend. Some disease occur in a cycle spread over a short period of time, which may be days, week, months, or a year. For example, measles in the pre-vaccination era appeared in cycles with major peaks every 2-3 years and rubella every 6-9 years. This was due to naturally occurring variations in herd immunity. A buildup of susceptibles is again required in the herd before there can be another attack. Influenza pandemics are also known to occur at interval of 7-10 years due to antigenics variations. Non-infectious condition may also show periodic fluctuations, for example, automobile accidents, etc. Third, we have long-term fluctuation or secular trend. Long-term or secular trends, the term secular trend implies changes in the occurrence of disease, that is progressive increase or decrease, for a long period of time, generally several years or decades. Although it may have short-term fluctuation imposed on it, a secular trend implies a consistent tendency to change in a particular direction or a definite movement in one direction. Interpretation of time trends. By surveillance or monitoring of time trends, the epidemiologists see which diseases are increasing, which decreasing, and which are emerging health problems. And one of the which we called, although it may have short-term fluctuation and it arises emerging health problems and of the effectiveness of measures to control old ones. We have time distributions. Disease can be described by time or its occurrence, week, month, year, seasonal in occurrence, periodic decrease or increase, give source of etiological preventive measures. 3 types of time: short-term, periodic, and we have discussed all it. Short-term fluctuation we have discussed, periodic fluctuation we have discussed, and long-term we have also discussed. So we have a place of distribution, another geographical comparison. This is a study of the geographic of disease or geographic pathology is one of the important dimensions of descriptive ophthalmology. By studying the distributions of disease in different populations, we gain perspective of the fascinating differences or variations in disease patterns, not only between countries but also within countries. The relative importance of genes versus environment changes with migration, and the possible roles of diet and other etiological factors. In short, geographical studies has profoundly influenced our understanding of disease its nature, its determinants, and its relation to subsequent pathology. The geographic variation in disease occurrence has been one of the stimulants of national and international study. These variation may be classified into four parts, and this is the international variations, national variations, rural-urban differences, and local differences. International variation include in the descriptive studies by place have shown that the pattern of disease is not the same everywhere. For example, we know that cancer exists all over the world, but there is, however, a marked difference between the incidence of each cancer in different parts of the world. Thus, cancer of the stomach is very common in Japan. National variations, we have, it is obvious that variation in disease occurrence must also exist within the country or national boundaries. For example, the distributions of endemic goiter, leprosy, malaria, nutritional deficiency disease have all shown variation in their distribution in Pakistan, with some parts of the countries more affected and other less affected and are not affected at all. Such situation exists in every country. One of the fluctuation of descriptive epidemiology is to provide data regarding the type of disease problems and their magnitude in terms of incidence, prevalence, and mortality rate. Such information is needed to demarcate the affected areas and for providing appropriate healthcare services. We have rural-urban differences. Rural-urban variation in disease distributions are well known. Chronic bronchitis, accidents, lung cancer, cardiovascular diseases, mental illnesses, and drug dependencies are usually more frequently in urban areas. In rural areas, on the other hand, skin and zoonotic diseases and soil-transmitted helminths may be more frequent in rural areas than in urban areas. Death rates, specifically infant and maternity mortality rates, are higher in rural areas. These vary rather than urban areas. These variations may be due to differences in population density, social class, deficiencies in medical care, levels of sanitation, education, and environmental factors. The ophthalmologist seeks to define groups which are at highest risk for the particular disease and provide guidelines to the health administration for their prevention and control. We have next, that's local distribution. Inner and outer city variations in disease frequency are well known. These variations are the best studied with the aids of spot maps or shaded map. These maps show at a glance areas of high or low frequency. The boundaries that pattern of disease distributions. The ophthalmologist is interested in geographical variation in disease occurrence. Geographic distributions may provide evidence of the source of disease and its mode of spread. By relating these variations to agent, host, and environmental factors, he tries to derive clues to the sources of disease and its mode of spread to formulate and test etiological hypotheses. The clinician is also benefit from knowledge that a patient comes to him from a certain geographical area which is endemic for a certain infrequent diseases such as yaws and leishmaniasis, as it helps him to focus attention on these diseases to which the patient may have been exposed. We have another person distribution, and person distributions are in the descriptive study. A person has been distributed into age, sex, and etc. In descriptive studies, the disease is further characterized by defining the persons who develop the disease by age, sex, occupation, marital status, habits, social class, and other host factors. These factors do not necessarily represent etiological factors, but they contribute a good deal to our understanding of the natural history of disease. Age is strongly related to this disease than any other single host. Certain diseases are more frequent in certain age group, than in others. For example, measles in childhood, cancers in middle age, and arthrosis in old age. Sex. Sex is another host characteristic which is often studied in relation diseases. Using such indices, sex ratio, sex-specific mortality and morbidity rates, it has been found that certain chronic diseases such as diabetes, hyperthyroidism and obesity are strikingly more common in women than in men, and diseases such as lung cancer and coronary heart diseases are less frequent in women. Variation in disease frequency between sex have been on the basic biological differences, cultural and behavioral differences between the sexes. We have another, it's ethnicity. Ethnicity differences in the disease occurrence have been noted between population subgroups of different racial or ethnic group. These includes TB, essential hypertension, coronary heart disease, cancer, and anemia. These differences, whether they are related to genetic or environmental factors, have been stimulus to further diseases. We have another, it's marital status. In countries where studies on mortality in relation to marital status have been conducted, it was found that mortality rates were always lower for married males and females than for the unmarried of the same age and sex. We have occupation. It is well recognized that man's occupation from which he earns his livelihood has an important bearing on his health status. Occupation may alter the habit of pattern of employees, sleep, for example, sleep, alcohol, smoking, drug addiction, night shift. It is obvious that persons working in a particular occupation are exposed to particular types of risk. Social class. Epidemiological studies have shown that health and disease are not equally distributed in social classes. Individuals in the upper social classes have a longer life expectancy and better health and nutritional status rather than those in the lower social class. Certain diseases, for example, coronary heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, have shown a higher prevalence in upper class rather than lower class. Social class differences have also been observed in mental illness and utilization of medical and healthcare services. Behavior. Human behavior is increasingly looked upon as a risk factor in modern day diseases such as coronary heart disease, cancer, obesity, and accidents. Stress. Stress has been shown to affect variety of variables related to patient responses. For example, susceptibility to disease, compliance with medical regime, migration. Migration in Pakistan, diseases like malaria and are considered to be a rural problems, dengue. However, because of the movements of people from rural to urban areas, these diseases have created a serious problems in urban areas. Human movement may be classified as short-term, long-term, or permanent according to age, sex, education, and occupation. Third, internal or external migration. Fourth, we have urban versus rural. Migration has presented challenge to control prevention of disease. We have another, this is measurement of disease. Measurement of disease, it's mandatory to have a clear picture of the amount of disease in the population. This information should be available in terms of mortality, morbidity, disability, and so on, and should preferably be available for different subgroups of the population. Measurement of mortality is straightforward. Morbidity has two aspects, incidence and prevalence. Incidence can be obtained from longitudinal studies and prevalence can be from cross-sectional studies. Descriptive epidemiology may use a cross-sectional or longitudinal designs to obtain estimates of magnitudes of health and disease problems in human population. Incidence, the number of new cases, total number of new cases, divided by total population into 1000. Prevalence, the number of old and new cases divided by a population over a given time of period divided by 100. There are two types of prevalence, point prevalence and period prevalence. And comparing with unknown indices, make a question, make a comparison, ask a question, helps etiology, identify groups and formulation of etiological hypothesis. It's a supposition arrived at a from observation or reflection. It should specify following: population, specific causes being considered, expected outcomes, the disease, does response, relationship, time response. And these are the uses of descriptive epidemiology. Contribute to research by describing variation in disease occurrence by time, place and person. 2. Clues in disease epidemiology. 3rd, data regarding magnitude of disease load and types of disease problems in community in terms of morbidity and mortality. Background data for planning, organizing and evaluating preventive curative services. Two type of descriptive studies are case report and case series. Cross-sectional. In case report and case series, it's divided into two parts: cross-sectional descriptive study and longitudinal descriptive study. And thank you so much. We have already finished. Good.